Can you be codependent with a job? This is something that I have observed with people that do have codependency with a job. A lot of times when you think of codependency, you think about relationships with people. Someone may be codependent with an individual, really unhealthy, out of balance relationship, perhaps with a toxic person, right? Different examples of what toxic can be. But the truth is, people can be a bit, I call it codependent with the universe in general, right? They just have these characteristics that are pervasive across multiple contexts. Now, some people have codependency with a job, and I want to give some examples of some parallels here between codependency of a person and a job. So I've listened to people over the years, they'll complain about a job, about how toxic it is, right? But in the same breath, they will have excuses to justify why they cannot change the situation or why they're not going to change the situation, right? So it'll be an out of balance relationship where a person is compromising their own needs and values. So it's at their expense in order to appease this other entity, if you will, the job, the employer, to keep it good. And people can be more prone or vulnerable to falling into the trap of codependency, who have a tendency to need reassurance, validation, approval, a sense of their self-esteem, their worth, and having a sense of their value, right? So I'm going to give some examples of a couple types of jobs. This is not stereotyping with a broad brush, but I am going to point out real examples of two different types of jobs, right? So let's look at for example, the teaching industry, public education, school teachers. So they may have a contract that says they get to go home at 3 p.m. or 3:30. But the truth is, I've known a lot of teachers over the years that that's not the case. They might stay there at the school till 5, 6 p.m. They get home and then they bring work home. They're grading papers at home. And they have all this work that continues outside of their contract hours that they're actually paid and compensated for. They may even be grading the papers at home, etc. You get the idea. And sometimes they even buy supplies for the classroom at their expense, right? Because they don't have the resources maybe always being provided. So what happens is there's two things that can happen. A person with healthy boundaries who feels secure will interpret this as an out of balance situation. They will feel some resentment that this is encroaching upon their personal life. It's causing them to compromise their own needs. So they'll do something about it is the point and not feel guilty. Someone who is a bit insecure, however, who wants the approval, they will fall into this trap of a culture that promotes this, such as, well, you take one for the team, right? You're a good soldier. You take one for the team. That's the way it is. We suck it up because it's for the kids, right? And we're doing it for the kids. So that becomes a bit of a rationalization to be dismissive of any consideration of putting some healthy boundaries or having some balance in place, right? So I'm taking one for the team. And so the culture will promote this. For example, there might be a teacher, perhaps someone with some healthy boundaries, right? They go home when at the time they're allowed to go home. The contract says, I can go home at 3:30. So that's precisely what they do. They get their belongings, they get in their car and they leave. Only for the next day, for some of the other people who work there, they might point it out in a roundabout way. Hey, we noticed you left at 3:30 yesterday, right? Which is really what they're saying is, trying to maybe make you feel guilty for doing that, right? Because they stay late, right? So people with healthy boundaries will say, yes, that is correct. I did leave at 3:30, just like my contract says I can, right? They don't feel guilty. They don't feel rejection or fear of being rejection, right? The approval. So this happens a lot. People compromise their own value and needs. So this can come at the cost of their own family. So time with their own children, their husband or wife, their spouse. So things are being compromised here at your expense. You being able to prioritize your own needs, your own family, if you will. So this perpetuates itself for other reasons too. People might rationalize things for why they're not going to leave the job, which is dismissive, such as, here's a very popular one. Well, it'll be that way somewhere else, right? I'll go somewhere else and it won't be any better. I'm not going to be treated any better. There'll always be something to put up with. Well, while there might be some truth to that, the truth is you definitely can get a better value somewhere else for how you're treated, expectations, work-life balance, 100%. So I've seen people stay at a toxic job that is overly demanding, causes them to compromise their needs. And they'll stay there with this idea that, well, it will not be any better anywhere else. And then also this idea of filling the value, right? That I'm valued here, I'm important, right? So they stay. So this is codependency. Codependency can be being over-involved with problems that really is out of balance, right? You're over-invested in things where the other side of it is not invested. Confusing pity for love, right? For example. And so on and so on. Being this rigid, maybe all or nothing way of how you look and interpret situations. What about the healthcare profession? I know a lot of nurses, they work shift work, and they'll work 12-hour shifts. And notoriously enough, they're understaffed, right? The administration, they run the place like a business. They want to minimize overhead, right? So they're going to squeeze as much work as they can out of as minimal staff as possible. Of course, this creates an imbalance, creates stress for the nurses, and so on. And so they have options here. Do I pursue a different value somewhere else where I can work as a nurse and not have to compromise myself? That is an option. There's other options out there, right? Some individuals will get this trooper mentality. You just be a good soldier, right? You suit up, show up, and you suck it up. You do not complain. So anyone who has healthy boundaries is reasonable, says, hey, I'm not going to compromise my needs. The job does have a certain priority for sure, but there needs to be a balance. So individuals who will be assertive to advocate for the healthy balance of a job, a lot of times will be gaslit by the people who are more codependent with the job. They'll try to make you feel guilty. So there's a lot of stuff I could say about parallels of codependency with a job, how they're very similar to personal relationships. A lot more can be said. So my encouragement is this. If you're in a job that compromises you being able to prioritize taking care of yourself, being present with your family, physical health, it's really just making it difficult on you. And you may consider trying to move yourself in a position. And it might be a process over time to position yourself to be able to get a different and new job. A lot of people, this one domain all by itself, the career, is the number one reason why they're freaking depressed, feel no sense of purpose and meaning, overly stressed, exhausted. So this can be like an adjustment disorder too, right? It's not really an underlying medical problem. Your life kind of sucks in a ways. Your job sucks, right? If you will. So as the meme says sometimes, before you think you're depressed, make sure first that your job just doesn't suck, right? So position yourself, move in the direction of something different. That's the point. It can be better somewhere else. You're not doing anything wrong to prioritize yourself. We do not want to confuse taking one for the team, being a good employee, and being flexible as meaning you can't have rules and limits, healthy boundaries, because these things get confused. It's all or nothing. So either have porous boundaries and just put up with whatever. And if you do not, you're not a team player. So that's bullshit. That's gaslighting. That's codependency. That's rationalizing and perpetuating a narrative that is dismissive of having feelings that are actually congruent to the facts that will actually work better for you. You're more likely to do something about it. So I hope this helps. It's Flex Friday, right? Flex Friday. Hope everybody's going to have a good weekend and take care. Thank you.